And right away, do the Rebbe's Takone learning Rambam. I don't think give me something better. So the Rebbe should help that everybody should take open himself the lineage from the Rambam. There's also a story that somebody gave to Shluchim, the other, they had a lot of chavis. Money, everybody's chavis. So the Rebbe says when you're going to learn Rambam and not going to have any chavis from the Rambam, you're not going to have any chavis begashmis also. So the idea for learning Rambam is poshet, brings broche v'atzloche. Everybody in all inyonim, there's no question about it. That the limud Rambam, the Rebbe's Takone, is begay in negay everybody begashmis uberuchnis, and this is the kele of all broches. But Rebbe Shalom and this day from the بعומר, the Simcha from Rashbi, the Rebbe and the Rambam, we should all take upon ourselves a chizuk in the lineage from the Rambam, and to them chizuk we should say the Kol Mamish. Little Tiros.
If there's a hofen that the Teufel was the Rambam read that's going to be, and Madame Mitzvim Kofu, Mashiach will come, we should have it there now on the time. So this Mashiach will come in a few hours, as you mentioned. Chaim. On that note, that Rav Kaplan spoke that the learning of the Rambam brings brachos and yeshuas and all of the Zaken. We have in the man of Shliach in Kotzin Luke, who's going to share with us an interesting story. It's my honor to call upon Rav Shmuel Zurkin, Shliach of the Rebbe in Kotzin Luke. Rav Zurkin.
بعומر. My relationship with learning Rambam begins when I was a young bacher, and I was introduced by the Mashpiyim to start learning Rambam. I began with Perek Echad, and then eventually doing Shleisha Prakim. But as most people, learning Rambam every day, 3 prakim, can be very challenging. And especially when you have days that are very busy throughout the year. During the year, there are certain days that are very busy and very difficult to do the Rambam that day, especially Yom Tovim, etc. And often, people fall behind, and that very often happened to me. And when you fall behind, there are different options. What do you do when you fall behind? So one approach is that when you fall behind, you start over wherever you're holding. You continue. Whenever you decide that you want to recommit, so you start again from wherever they're holding, or wait for the next cycle. Like tonight, it's a good time to start. But at one point I decided that if I fall behind, I have to catch up. And therefore, I have to start doing every night 4 prakim Rambam. Instead of 3, add 4. Like this, eventually, I'll catch up all the prakim. For me particularly, the challenge was during the Yom Tovim of Pesach and Sukkot. This past Sukkot was a very busy one. I mean, the whole Tishrei, starting from the week before Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, for whatever reason, I was very, very busy, very preoccupied. And one day went by, and by the time I got to sitting down with the Rambam, it was very, very late, and I didn't have the koiches, and fell asleep and didn't do the Rambam. The next day, it kept happening every day, and by the time Tishrei was over, I realized that I was entire sefer of Rambam behind. And I said to myself, okay, I have to catch up. So every night I'm going to do 4 brakim. So this is going to be now a long-term project. So I started to do it, but then even when you do the 4 brakim, being that it's long, I kept still falling behind. And I never was able to catch up. I always had my own British Shir. I couldn't follow the regular British Shir because I had my own program. I had to catch up. And finally it came Nissan. And I said to myself, I'm not going to allow what happened Tishrei to happen again in Nissan. So I came to the conclusion that in order for that to happen, I have to make Rambam the number 1 priority of my day. And therefore, when I came home from davening in the morning, even though there was so much to do right before Pesach, cleaning and everything, I said, I'm not going to start anything until I finish Rambam. I did the Rambam of the day. I'm still doing 4 prakim, sometimes even 5 prakim, trying to catch up. And the most challenging day was an Erev Pesach. Because obviously Erev Pesach was the busiest day of the year, Kimat. But I said to my wife, I'm going to go to shul in the middle of the day and do Rambam, learn Rambam, and then come back home. And that's what I did. Throughout Chol Hamoed, that was my first thing. And finally, 2 days after Pesach, I caught up. And I finished the סיום yesterday. So there's 2 lessons that I learned from this. Number 1, that you could be an entire sefer behind, and you can go on for 6 months, constantly being behind everybody else, but yet you can still catch up. It's possible. And lesson number 2, for the Chatchila, in order for you to be up to date in Rambam, the only way is that it becomes your number 1 priority of your day. Before you do anything else, like Captain mentioned earlier, doing it before davening, but even if it's not your thing, it should be done during the day. It shouldn't be done at night when you're half asleep. Find the time during the day, and then you can have that. First of all, your mind is clear. You can think more of what you're saying, but also you have more chance of going through the whole thing and finishing it, the full 3 prakim. So I started to share this because it was my struggle and my triumph, and therefore I hope that it could be a chizuk to anyone else who also goes through similar struggles and can use this as a lesson that you can always catch up, and Rambam can be finished, and you can make the סיום with everyone else, and we should make the סיום of goals, and we should be zecher to Mol Oretz Deis Hashem K'mayim Yom Chasen. Shreich.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Zrukin. The mice is today is the first day of the new Mavzer, so there's nothing to catch up, there's nothing to do unless your old choices from the last Mavzer. But from this Mavzer, you don't have to catch up anything. You can start today. Tonight, you can learn whoever didn't learn the Dagdoma Rambam, you could do it tonight, and you'll be up to date. As we mentioned, as was mentioned, that today we're starting the new Mavzer. So it's my great honor to call upon the Rav of Tzidei Das V'Das, the Rosh Yeshiva here in the Yeshiva Stenpit Minim, Rav Agon, Rav Moshe Stern, to start the new Mavzer. Rav Stern.
gemacht wird, und wir haben wir schon vorher gewusst. Und man früher, die Scheiches, der סיום זה like בעומר, סיום זה like בעומר, אנחנו זכר בקשר להגשים את הרמב לפני הרמב שלמד קריאה. את כל הרמב, היסטוידס, ועמוד החוכמס, לידע שיש שם מוצא ראשון, הוא ממציא כל הנמצא. בשיחס ממציא כל הנמצא, ממציא לו של הויבר. Der Torah said in Shara Yehud Be'emuna, he said to b'chol rega, b'chol הנמצויים בשמיים ואורץ, ומה ביניהם ונמצאו במיתה סימוצה. One word that we're doing the Sikha on the Sikhas, that the first halacha of the Rambam, the mocking of Zoya. It says over there that a whole sefer, the Rambam is sefer of Zoya. Some halachas in the Rambam, the mocking of the Zoya. So to the first halacha, the Zoya is sefer of Amud HaChokmah, Beide Sheyesh HaMotzu Yishim. The whole halacha is Zoya Boemo, and the posik V'yidatem Ki Ani Hashem. Zoya Devoshna Zoya is Kudeto, more the whole Kudim, Vidatem Ki Hashem, that Kudeto, more the whole Kudim, the Minda. I don't remember every Roshna Zoya, but as much as of that the Roshna Rambam is close to Roshna Zoya. And this is the noise of the Shaykhs, the Shbitz Mamish, the Ershta Aloche, is the motive for Sefer Zoya, the Rambam of Shima Baruch. Say one short word, since my Yeshiva was that well, so I prepared something else. So I want this to go for them, making the kids emotes. Thinking to say just one short word, Rambam Bechlal. There's so many halachas in Rambam, because Rambam goes the halachas, steht in Gemara. But certain halachas, the Rambam is more unique for the Rambam. One of these halachas, the Agdim, says something from Atchol HaSimcha Shabbos. Shavun Eich with Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. The Rebbe said in the Kutzotera Parshas Gahar, the Maimer Shavsoisel Tishmoihu, means the Maimer HaGemore, Omar Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, and Ilu Yisrael V'Shamim Shtei Shabboses Kivuchoson, Yad Nigod. It means, the way to go to Torah, the Yerushalmi says one Shabbos. The Rebbe explained that Machloikis. There are two Chinas in Shabbos. Shabbos Torah, Shabbos Elor, Leil Shabbos, Yoim Shabbos. So it's like Tishmoy, it means the two Chinas of the one Shabbos. There ain't Shabbos, no. Shabbos are two Chinas. There's no ein halacha from Rambam in the Shabbos. In Perek Aleph Halacha Zayin, is in Rambam the halacha she'en tzricha legufo. Complicated halacha, but just mention one word. Halacha she'en tzricha legufo means one is doing a halacha, but for a zaitika purpose. One of the examples, Mishnah, Moitzei Sames, for example, a person is taking out garbage outside, carrying out the garbage outside. This is, he's doing the Ritzon with Kavoneh, but the purpose is a zaitik stam. The local tzricha of the group of Ritzon means he takes out a kele outside because he needs to walk with it. And that was just coming in Ois, and then the Ois a Kumes, a Kardem, the Vakea, and then don't know with them. Whatever nimmt euch der Aschbo, der darf uns nicht stoppen im Stuhl. Das ist aber auch schön Ziel für den Gufo. Loche שהצליח לגופה זה מחלוקת על יהודה רב שמעון אברהם. Was der Loche? Rov Rishonim Alten, Loche שהצליח לגופו, Alten Rov Rishonim ist Potter. Der Rambam passt in Rav Jude, aber Loche שהצליח לגופו ist Chayil. Gemine the Meister, der Rambam alle Rishonim, even those who hold the Loche שהצליח לגופo is not also in that still also in the Rabbon. Nafkamine will be, there was this one Nafkamine, and then on sign Nafkamine is the Moshul. One of Nafkamine is if one is doing Melechet Seder, Sod Nochosh, the Notzu for the Nochosh, Adach Nishon the Nochosh, it doesn't need the Nochosh. And the Nochosh is the Gufo. It doesn't need the Nochosh, and the Nochosh is the Gufo. So, the Nochosh is the Gufo Potter, but the Notzu and Nochosh, Rabbona Zane Matir, the Mogrim Tzar, and the Rabbona Matir. According to the Rambam, the Nochosh is the Gufo Chayer, the Tzot Nochosh would only be mutter if it does it with a Shino. According to those who hold the Nochosh is the Gufo Potter, and even if it does it for derech, they say the Rabbanon and it's mutter. One more thing I want to mention, since for the Rav Shmuel Zilkin, and when we don't do the man, sucht Eitzes, wie zu lernen Rambam and not to get behind. So, ich kann Moisef sein, die Zerore, Schat Aid will das sehr zu lernen, die Zerore stellt, wo stellt die Zerore? Die Zerore lässt nicht, weil meint, lernen Rambam mit einer halben Stunde. Die Zerore lässt sich lernen eine halbe Stunde. Meint, der Schatz, wie will lernen Rambam Matzliach sein, ist eine von den vorsten Sachen. Man muss nicht lernen die ganze Rambam auf einmal. Und in der Früh noch und da lernen 10 Alochas. 10 Alochas nennen 2-3 Minuten. All Chane vom Shiur die Leben. Nur ein few Alochas. Ich bin noch ein Schutz, noch ein paar Alochas. Also sie dort denken, was sie da 90 Alochas, sie dort denken, was sie da 30 Alochas. Aber als man Matzliach zu lernen, muss ich sich, ich darf zu bretteln mit der Zerore. Ich darf zu bretteln mit der Zerore. Muss ich der Zerore in Groß, da gibt es kleine Stücke nach Amor, der Matzliach hat. Shmuel hat größte Koyach, sitzt in der Früh, hat einmal den ganzen Rambam. Und nicht jeder einer kann brechen die Zerore, aber ich stark auf einmal. Ich kann brechen ein Stück lachen. 100 Minuten auf einmal, 10 Minuten. Und der Ausbildung mit dem, ich habe so gesagt, ich schmöre, auf dem Dr. Shimma Ruchai, wir schaffen 2 Shabbos ist hier in Chosson, der Rebbe Masbir, ich schmöre meint, Shabbos Gide Rebestel. Mir darf das noch achten, nicht zu keiner machen. Aida bist nicht meine Käufers. Mir gibt Käufers, wir darf noch nicht keiner machen. Das ist die Schmöre, wir darf umbieten. Selbe Sache, lernen 3 Brok im Rambam am Tag, darf noch um Käufers abwerfen. Sie werden der zweite סיום הרמב, sie werden der erste סיום הרמב in Yerushalayim, wenn in Binyon Yehumo, der größte Ort, also damals war der größte Ort. Die kommen dort, damals waren der Gerre Rebbe, der Leib Simchi, die kommen zu mir, der größte Tag, der Gerre Rebbe, guckt der Kuhn mit seinem Bruder, sie damals noch nicht gewählt, der Rebbe. Ein Jahr später, die werden das סיום הרמב Yerushalayim kleiner, die werden ein kleinerer Ort. Damals sie kommen dort, der Bruder von Gerre Rebbe, was schon damals gewählt, noch ewig gewählt, der Rebbe, hat erzählt, der Eulen, der erste Macht hat nach umgestrengt, lernen 3 Brok im Tag. Er sagt aber, kann schon nicht. Jeder lernt den Rambam, hat Kasche, kann alle Gemorres, hat Kasche. sagt, lernt 1 Perik am Tag. Hat nicht kein Koyach. Hat nicht kein... Man lernt 3 Brok im Rambam am Tag, davon ist es in das Koyach. So ist es, die Schmöru, der Rebischte geht Koyach, und der Rebische helfen, und alle solche sein, ohne eben den Rambam, beseiden den Rambam, Sim Cherav.
Before we go to our guest speaker, we have the honor to have with us Chaver Bezdin of Mונטריאול, Shliach of the Rebbe in Laval, he also has a connection to the Rambam. If I'm not making a mistake, I think he made a scene in the Rambam's house in Morocco. So it's my great honor to call upon Rav David Balon.
We just heard that I had the schools to be in the home where the Rambam used to live for 6 years when he was in Morocco, in Fez. And we made the סיום there. The first סיום was made by Rav Raskin Rav Shalom with all the shluchim, all the Rabbanim came, all Gdolei Rabbanim from Fez, from Meknes, for all the cities around. They were matriarchs themselves to come. It was mamash, it was a Kiddush Hashem. Today, boom, my son was, I have a son today in Morocco, the Shliach there. He went to the same place and he made the סיום Rambam. The chief rabbi of Be'er Sheva was there, Bederi was there, spoke very nicely, very close to Chabad. And Baruch Hashem, we see that you are mamshich. I heard few keta here, keta there, that what we have to be mashkia for the limud Rambam, we just have to remember what the Rebbe asked from us. He said, yesh bakasha nafshit. That's the word the Rebbe said. Bakasha nafshit. And if I had a word stronger than that, I would say it. But that's the lashon I have now. So if the Rebbe asks bakasha nafshit, so we understand that the Yetzer Hara is very big because the Rebbe asked bakasha nafshit. So for sure we have to work on it and to make sure that we learn the Rambam. Last year, by the סיום Rambam, they gave out Rambams, new Rambams with the Yerushim of the Rebbe there. And Harav Sabach was there also, and he got it, and he started with the iron, and he said, he said, that's exactly what it says, מה שמבקש לאחרים הוא עושה בעצמו. That means the Rebbe asked from us to learn a Rambam, and he showed us he learned the Rambam himself, every day, every time, making Siyumim, Pilpulim, and Pirushim of the Rambam. So I don't understand why it should be a big Yetzer Hara. The Rebbe gives a koach. If he asks from us to learn the bakasha nafshit, so it's a bakasha nafshit. So we have to work on it and to do it. That's it. Since Rav Stern mentioned that we are in Yemei Asfira, and it's connected with the סיום Rambam, it's not always Yemei Asfira, so I thought to bring very interesting that the Rambam is one of the only ones who holds that the Sfirat HaOmer Bizman Hazeh, it's mitzvat aseh d'oraita. He's not the only one. There's also another Rishon, the Rav Eliezer ben Yonah from Ashkenaz. There was also a Rishon who holds that it's mitzvat aseh d'oraita afilu bizman hazeh. We find the Rosh, the Ran, the Rif, they all hold that it's the Rabbanan. So let's see in Rambam itself, when it speaks about the mitzvah of Sfirat HaOmer, it's in Hilchot Midi Musafim Perek Zayin. Then the Rambam says, Mitzvat Aseh Lispor Sfirat HaOmer. Mitzvat Aseh, it says. The Alter Rebbe, we see in Hilchot Pesach, brings also the first siman, the first siman that he says, Mitzvat Aseh Deoraita. He adds, the Alter Rebbe says, Mitzvat Aseh Deoraita. That we have to come to do Sfirat HaOmer, and then further, then he says, V'yesh Omrim, that Bizman Hazeh is the Rabbanan, V'chen
וכן פוסקים וכן נוהגים, that we hold like that, the Rebbe holds that it's the Rabbanan. And יש חילוקים, we have a few חילוקים, if we say it's the right of the Rabbanan, we'll see further the חילוקים that he brings. But very interesting that the Rebbe brings there, the other Rebbe brings, that even though it's a mitzvah de Rabbanan, that's what he holds, according to the Yesh Omrim. But he says, but any mitzvah d'aseh de Rabbanan becomes like a mitzvah d'aseh, like a mitzvah d'oraisa. Why? Because the Gemara says, lo tasur min hadavar asher yidu lecha yamin u'shmol. So the Gemara says, out of the pasuk that we learn, that any mitzvah de Rabbanan becomes like a mitzvah d'aseh. That's why the Baal HaTanya brings chamurim divrei sofrim divrei Torah, and the har ayah that we say bracha. Even according to those who say that it's the Rabbanan, we say bracha, b'shem u'malchut. The Rebbe brings a diuk on that. It's Sefer HaSichot. Very interesting diuk. He says, how come the Rambam says that mitzvah aseh lispo sfirat ha'omer bizman hazeh, and he doesn't say mitzvah aseh deoraisa? Why is it stam mitzvah aseh? Why does it say deoraisa? And further, we understand from the Rambam that he holds that it's deoraisa. So the Rebbe explains, very interesting. What do we say at the end? And we see by the Alter Rebbe, he starts the first. See if he says mitzvah aseh deoraisa is both sfirat ha'omer. Stam, says like that. And further he says the Yesh Omrim that today it's the Rabbanan and the Chen Noagim, we hold like that. And then he explains, what the Rebbe explains, but still he starts by saying mitzvah aseh deoraisa more than the Rambam. The Rambam says only mitzvah aseh. So the Rebbe brings that diuk and says something we have to understand exactly what the Rebbe says. Every small diuk, every small thing that's so important. But he says, yes, when we say, when the other Rebbe says mitzvah aseh deoraisa, that means that's what we want and that's what we wish. And we hope that even though we are studying to do Sfiras HaOmer, and we know that the other Rebbe says according to the Yesh Omrim and to the Rov HaPoskim that is the Rabbanan, but still we hope that tonight, when we are counting, it becomes the Oraisa. And that's why at the end we say it's a tefillah. יהי רצון שיבנה בית המקדש וכן על זה הדרך. So I think we have who could really feel that, and that's why the Rambam says mitzvah taseh, doesn't say mitzvah taseh d'oraisa, agam that he holds it's d'oraisa. So we have to feel that when we stand and we are ready to count, we hope that right now Mashiach comes and he'll be d'oraisa lechol hadorot. And let's hope that Be'ezrat Hashem, that having that in mind, and the Rebbe asked to learn a Rambam. Again, it's a bakasha nafshit, so we have no choice. It's a bakasha nafshit, so we have to do it, to learn it, and to come that whatever we learn, and we also understand that the Rambam collated kol haTorah kula, that means all the mitzvahs that we cannot do because we don't have Beis HaMikdash. So when we learn, as the Gemara says, kol ha'oseh b'Torah tola ki'lu kivola. So any mitzvah that we can't do because we don't have Beis HaMikdash, because we don't have the Bechor, we can do the mitzvah in Elven. If we learn the halacha, it's ke'ilu kiyamnu. So the good is by learning a Rambam, that's the way to the Mekayim, the Taryag mitzvot, and we hope that Shivaneh Beit HaMikdash Me'al B'Yameinu, Amen, Selah, we do right now. And right now, when we say Sfirat HaOmer, some say, some didn't say, those who are going to say, it'll be Be'ezrat Hashem, mitzvah taseh d'oraisa lechol hadorot.
I just want to make two short announcements. One is that this year is 55 years since the Rebbe came out with Mitzvah film. And everybody knows that there's a campaign here in Montreal that we're giving out film for whoever can't afford, and he's not putting on film because he doesn't have film and he can't afford to buy. So there's 120 pairs of film that were available. 97 already were given out for people who committed themselves to put on film. So there's still a few pairs left. If somebody knows somebody that needs it, should speak to Rabbi Shmuel Zalmanov. Also, this year is 60 years since the first building of Chabad that was built from scratch. That says they bought land and built up a building that took place. That's the yeshiva next door, 6405 Westbury, the corner of Plamondon. It's 60 years since the Chaluk Sabayis, which took place on Chov Gimel Iyar Tovshin Chov Beis, 60 years. And in honor of that, and there was spoke a Sikha, the Shabbos before, Shabbos Parashas Bahar, or Bahar Place, I'm not sure what it was. And in honor of that, there's a shortage that's going to be available on the back table after our guest speaker. Now, without further ado, it's my great honor and privilege. We have with us Landsman Choshev Rov from Toronto, who's our guest speaker for tonight. He's the Morid Asche of Basic Knesses, Beis Yankov, Antrei Village in Toronto. He's also a Magachir in the Yeshiva in Toronto. It's my honor to call upon Rav Dave Yehuda Shochat to address us. Rav Shochat.